work really hard and really perfectionistically towards a goal and then realize that that's actually not where you want to end up after all. And it can feel so defeating and it can be so confusing because you don't know what the end goal is, but you just know that you're pivoting. My guest today is the queen of pivots, and she ended up on top, you guys, on top. And she is doing incredible things to absolutely shift culture, atmosphere, change her company for the better. And she has these roots that go throughout our city and throughout this region based on her following her gut instincts. And I know that you're as curious as I am to hear about how that came about. So I want to introduce to you Kristin Weeden. She's a forward thinking people strategist with over 20 years of experience across sports, financial services, and higher education. As Chief Talent Officer at Penske Entertainment, she leads enterprise wide talent strategy and is known for aligning culture and people practices with business goals. She has successfully driven organizational redesigns, HR tech transformations, and leadership development initiatives focused on building inclusive, high performing workplaces. Guided by her North Star, authenticity, Kristin brings a global perspective to her work, serves on several nonprofit boards and civic committees, and remains deeply rooted in the Indianapolis community. A proud Southside Chicago native, she holds a bachelor's degree in political science, a master's in sport administration, and an SHRM SCP certification, as well as being a devoted wife and mother of two sons. Kristin, thank you so much for coming on the Unlock Your Blocks podcast. I'm so excited to have you here today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited to talk to you. Our chats are always good, so
Our
I'm
chats
excited
are always
for the conversation.
Yes, I love our chats. It's so good. I feel like we're just kindred spirits. And we met not too long ago at an event, and you were sharing about how, as a woman in a corporate workplace in a high up position, how do you overcome challenges and what is your perspective? And I loved that about you. And that was what inspired me to be like, hey, we need to be friends. You need to be on my podcast. Like, we need to get together. And we've had such good chats since then. So I would love for you to tell our listeners, as a chief talent officer, what exactly do you do?
Yeah, sure. And it's a good question, and probably my husband and kids don't even know the answer to it. It's funny. I was listening to you read my bio. It's like, who is that woman? Like, what is she doing? I know that's
It's
so funny.
funny. To hear someone else say it is funny, isn't it? Yeah.
So I guess before I tell you what I do, one thing I want to share. So Penske Entertainment. So I'm Chief Talent Officer at Penske Entertainment. Some people may or may not know what Penske Entertainment is because it is the umbrella for what's better known as the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, as IndyCar, which is an open wheel race series, and then also IMS Productions, which is a television production company that we own. So I am Chief Talent Officer of all three of those companies. And in that role, essentially, I oversee people strategy, people operations for all of the companies. So that's everything from, and in a more traditional sense, in many companies, you might say human resources. I oversee human resources for all three companies. And so that's everything from payroll, wages, benefits, you know, everything that we consider total rewards, to what I consider the more fun stuff, which is talent management, talent development, recruiting, retention, culture. I think my bread and butter is thinking about the culture of our organization, and is it conducive to what we want it to be able to recruit and retain top talent in our state. So I like to think I have one of the best jobs on the planet because I get to be a space for people to come and earn a living and have a great time while they do it.
That is such a great description. One of the things I love about hearing more about what you do is you light up when you're talking about stuff where it's like if you say the word, the letters HR to people, that is not something that people typically light up about. But the way that you do it is so beautiful and I completely love it. So I love the story of how you landed in this position. Can you share a little bit, like, guys, you need to have a conversation with this woman sometime because seriously, the details of this story are incredible. But I would love for you, Kristin, to just give us like the 3-minute version. Where did you start in school and what did you think you were going to end up doing? And then how the next few moves pivoted you away from what you thought you were doing?
Yeah. Great question. And the funny thing is, and we can talk about this offline in a different conversation, there's actually a story before the story as I listen to you ask that question. But let's start where we start, where this makes sense. So I went to graduate school for sports business. I got my master's degree at Indiana State University in sports. And when you graduate with a sports management degree, particularly in Indiana, but in general, you want to go work for a sports organization. You want to work for intercollegiate athletics or a major league sport team. And if you're here in Indiana, you want to work for the NCAA or something like it, Sports Corp or something. When I graduated, one of the roles that I had while I was in graduate school was a graduate assistant, both for men's basketball, but also for men's basketball at ISU, but also as a residence hall director at the University of Indianapolis. So when I graduated grad school, I kept my position as a RD at the University of Indianapolis, but I also got a full-time position at the NCAA. And so again, when you graduate with a master's in sport in Indiana, NCAA is like bread and butter, baby. Like that's where we're trying to go. So I had that opportunity. Long story short, after a couple of years, I was kind of met with an opportunity from both the University of Indianapolis and the NCAA. They both offered me promotions to essentially choose one. I was working both jobs full time, and both of my directors at the time were like, "Look, you are crazy. You're killing yourself. We love you. We want you to stay. Here's another opportunity." And I ended up choosing the University of Indianapolis, which was like, what? You went to school for sports. NCAA is a key player in the game. It's a key employer for sports, the sports industry. Why would you leave it to be in higher ed? But I did. And so I stayed with the university for about 11 years and then was recruited to go into the corporate sector, into finance, financial services. And so I took a position in human resources at the Federal Home Loan Bank of Indianapolis, which is a wholesale bank on the north side of the city. I stayed there for 6 years, did a lot of great work there, met a lot of great people. But it was where I got my footing in human resources, and it's where I learned what part of human resources really make me light up, as you said, and what I was really good at or could be really good at. And so I spent 6 years there, was promoted multiple times along that journey, and essentially was recruited to come here to the Indianapolis Motor Speedway and IndyCar IMSP as the chief talent officer. That
I love it.
hopefully that was a 3-minute synopsis of what's really a crazy long story.
A plus, A plus. That was a great yes, yes, because I got the full story behind all that last week. So I know there's lots of other juicy details in there. So, okay. So take us to the moment where you're deciding between taking your dream job for a promotion and staying with something that was never your intention to end up in. Like you were not here like being like, I'm gonna be the best at res life. I'm gonna stay in a university setting. I'm gonna be, that was not the dream.
No.
What on earth happened? Because I believe because I know so much of your story now, you are such a queen of following your gut instinct, even in the face of potential questioning and judgment from other people, even your own questioning and judgment. Your gut instinct speaks to you and you listen. So tell us about this decision. Bring us into that moment. You had just been called into the offices of both directors for both positions, and they're like, you got to choose.
Yeah. So, it's a really good question. And I do believe that God gave me a crazy gut instinct. I'm telling you, I think I was saying this to a colleague the other day. I was like, I really think God gave me a gift. And she was like, girl, God gave you multiple gifts, but that one, yeah, that's it right there. And there have been times, just so you know, that I haven't listened to it, which is, and anytime that's been the case, I've known it instantly, or even if not instantly, I've realized when I should have listened, and it's allowed me to get that much trusting of it. But even back then, in that moment, in that decision, I chose to lean into what my gut was telling me, which was what feels good and authentic to you. What feels like the situation where you can show up to work every day as who you are, give your best self, make an impact. I think it was the moment where I started to realize, like what I enjoyed, but also what I was good at or could be good at, and bigger than that, where I could make a difference. And it was in the work that I was doing at UIndy at the time that I felt like I was making a difference. Like even if it was to one student or one parent or one, faculty or staff member who was kind of going through something, or one athlete, one coach, like everything that you do in that work can be impactful. And I enjoyed the idea that I was doing something that I felt like was making a difference in people's lives, even if it was, this big to that person. I mean, even if it's this big in the grand scheme, it's usually huge to one person. And so I really felt good about it. I felt good about the culture of the organization, and I didn't even know that word back then, but it was just like I just felt like I could show up, I could be myself, and I could make a really big difference in people's lives, and so I just leaned into that. And it was crazy, it was a risk, it was like, I mean, you leave the NCAA, will I ever get back? Like, if I ever wanted to get back, am I burning a bridge? Like, I don't know, but it felt like the right thing to do, and so it's what I did.
So courageous, so incredibly courageous for all the high
For
achievers.
the record, not to cut you off, it was not
Yeah,
more it was
it wasn't the money that took you.
was not.
That makes sense, and I think that for all the women who are listening who are high achievers, who are perfectionists, and who, don't wanna disappoint and don't wanna be illogical or seen as like, "Oh my gosh, like, what's wrong with her? Why did she do that?" That is such a challenging idea that you would make a decision that you couldn't necessarily back up with like, "Oh, it's the money," or, "Oh, it's the this was my dream," or, "Oh," it didn't necessarily make sense at the time, but you trusted yourself to go there. So then can you walk us through how that one decision then became the foundation for your pivots and then eventually got you into HR and now back into sports, which I think is so beautiful?
Yeah. Early on in my career, I read a stat. It was in Forbes magazine, if I'm not mistaken, that said, and this was 20 years ago, right? That said we spend 75% of our time at work. And I remember reading that stat going like, that's crazy. Now when you're in student affairs, higher ed, in most capacities, you're spending a lot of time at work. You're spending all day, there's evenings, there's weekends. I mean, if you're engaged in your work, especially in student affairs, but I really mean everywhere throughout the campus. You're spending a lot of time. And I remember reading that article in Forbes, which I felt like wasn't a voice of higher ed. They're spending 75% of their time at work. I don't know how much, how much. And I lived on the campus at the time. So I'm spending a heck of a lot of time. Um, and it was something about that made me think at my core, I in addition to this feeling like a gut feeling of where I should be going and what I should be doing. Logically, also, I want to enjoy as much as I can what I do. And I want to be, again, I want to make an impact. That's a part of enjoying it for me. And so, I used the word culture earlier. I didn't have that vernacular then. What I knew is it was important for people to feel good about the spaces that they occupy. So if we're going to have students come and live on our campus and enroll in our classes and participate in our sports, there are things outside of those specifics that need to happen on a campus for those students and those parents to feel good about that decision. Do they feel like they're safe? Do they feel like they have people that can relate to them? Do they feel like they can come and be themselves and, get an education and just feel like they're engulfed in the community? Do they feel a sense of community? And so as time progressed, like that was the root of the crux of the work that I did. So it's like, yes, it's housing, but man, can students come and feel great about this, 8 by 10 room that they're in with no space that they're sharing with another person? Are they excited to come back to the residence halls? Or do we have things going on where if you are a black or brown person at the University of Indianapolis, who at the time was a predominantly white institution, what do we have going on this campus that makes this feel like home for them? And then I thought about those same things as it relates to the staff and the employees. I managed, in my former roles, I managed people up to 12 people, and then I became, the director and the dean. And so I've got a lot of people in my purview. And how do they feel about showing up to work every day? Because again, are we spending 75+% of our time at work? Well, we need to make it the best experience we can. And so that was really the foundation of the way I approached the work. There's a lot of technical stuff you have to be doing, and a lot of financial stuff, and a lot of compliance driven stuff. But like how are we vibing in all of this while we get the hard things done. And so that was became a huge part of my work. So then you transition and I moved to human resources. Actually, when I was being recruited to that, my first response to the person who was recruiting me into HR, I said, I don't do HR. Like, what are you talking about? I'm in student affairs. I don't, that's not what I do. And I remember the senior vice president at the time called me up and kind of schooled me on how there was a correlation in terms of HR and what I was doing as a student affairs professional. So when I got into HR, I quickly figured out at the bank, it was very much about the tech. It was very much about the technical, but I just could not let all the other stuff go. I'm like, no, okay, we can do the technical, but like, can we catch a vibe while we do it? Like, why can't two things be true? And so I started to really hone in on what the bank was missing, what that organization and that culture was missing that I felt like would be a benefit to all of the employees. It was what they were longing for that they didn't even know. And so started to get some traction with having those conversations inside of our organization. And it just kind of took off eventually. I mean, again, I'm making a long story short, but it took off and we were able to do a lot of great work inside that organization with being focused on the culture of it in addition to comp and benefits and total rewards and compliance and hiring and firing and all the things. We started to really pay attention to the workforce and how people felt about coming to work and what would get them in the door besides a comp package and what would keep them in the door. And so that foundation that I got, and also when I was at the university, I always like to say I worked for one of the best human beings I know. She gave me so much in terms of just people are humans and we should treat them as such and interact with them as such and care about each other in a way that you might not get in a lot of workplaces. So I took that with me.
That's beautiful. I love this. So you're really I just think, okay, so one of the things that I think can get lost if you're a perfectionist or if you're a high achiever and we're always kind of thinking, we're always kind of analyzing, and we can get stuck in that analysis paralysis, right? We can get stuck in the details, we can get stuck in the weeds. What I love about this journey of yours is that you brought heart into every situation that you were coming into, and you wanted other people's hearts to stay alive. So, can you talk about as you advanced through these companies and then you eventually got recruited to Penske? Can you talk a little bit about did you have self doubt? Like, I hear a little bit of the like, well, hey, I'm not qualified for HR. Like, but you were the dean of student affairs, right? So it's like they had to like be like, actually, you are qualified for HR. But you're like, "I don't have a degree in that, but I have 7 other degrees." So, did you actively have a voice of self-doubt at any of these places? Were you hard on yourself? Like, what came at you as you were doing these uncomfortable transitions?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a lot of, I mean, again, even as I listen to you read my bio, I'm like, who is it? Like, that is not who I am. I don't know. So absolutely, there's doubt. I think for me, what was more my challenge, I guess, was I would oftentimes play it small. And I think it was out of, and not wanting to overstep sometimes or just wanting to be, authenticity is very important to me. Like me just being able to be kind of who I am and other people being able to show up that way too. And so I don't love, like my employees joke or laugh at me now. Like I don't like when they call me boss. I'm like, I'm not your boss. There's a element of like, I don't want to, I don't want other people to think I'm too big, or I don't want other people to think, because I'm just Kristen and I'm really just doing what feels right and I'm doing what I think is the right thing as often as I possibly can be doing. And so sometimes I think what the challenge was for me is, and people talk about imposter syndrome, um, it's like I'm a girl from the south side of Chicago. I don't know how I'm doing all these things, but I don't want to ever get too big for my britches, and I don't want anybody else to think I think I'm too big for my britches. So I think over these years, and even sometimes now, like there have been plenty of times where I play it small or kind of downplay even my role in doing something. I'll let lots of other people be the face of whatever's happening because it's for me, it's not about who gets the who gets to be the face. It's about the work we're doing. And so I'm okay being in the back seat, orchestrating all the things and giving, making sure we're going in a certain direction. And if somebody else wants the kudos, go ahead and have it. Like you can think it all came from that person, and I'm cool with that. Loyalty is a big thing for me. I'm a really loyal person, and I've had to be careful about that over my journey because it has, in some instances, kept me from making certain decisions. But then in other times where I've made some of the biggest decisions of my career, I've like killed myself over the fact that I left somebody who, gave me an opportunity and so luckily those relationships are still intact and people understood and were happy for me and so have supported me. But, maybe 20 years ago might not have made some of those same decisions because I didn't want to be um, unappreciative or seen as unappreciative or seen as not being loyal. So things like loyalty and not wanting to be perceived as you know, self I don't know the word I'm looking for, but I'm very humble. I try to be humble, try to do the right thing, and it's not about my title. It's really about what we're doing and how we're serving and supporting people. And so, but I've had to be again. I've played the background a lot, so it sounds like I've done a lot of big things, and I have done a lot of big things. But I think in those moments, lots of people didn't know I was driving it, and that was to some degree on purpose because I'm a team player, I'm a collaborative, and you can have the shine. I'm good. Yeah.
I love that you used the term you don't wanna be seen as too big for your britches because I literally have a podcast episode, just a solo episode where I was processing this idea that I grew up and that's like a Midwestern saying, right? Like, I was explaining, like, what that means, you don't wanna be self-important, you don't wanna think you're all that when everybody else is like, "Well, who does she think she is?" And when we have that question that pops up, that's like, what we're afraid of is somebody thinking, "Well, who is she to or who am I to?" We have to be careful, right? Because you can put a lid on your own success from there. So for you, it sounds like a lot of the time it hasn't necessarily negatively affected you to be sort of overly humble and kind of not try to not be too big for your britches. Do you think that there would have been different outcomes if you had not been afraid to shine with your full shine?
For sure. I mean, I think there has been some opportunities that I didn't go after or that I wasn't acknowledged for because I was hiding behind other people. So I wouldn't say it's been totally hasn't impacted me. And I think because of that were moments where I've had to say to myself, like, you should probably stop this. Like you like you should think about this differently. So I do think that there have been times that where it's affected me. But I think um where I've been able to excel is, because I focus less on just the me of it all, and and so much of the work I do is about other people. Then other people, and sometimes what has helped me is the right people do see it and have been able to kind of pull me out of that or pull me aside and put a little nugget in my ear about how I need to operate or how I should move or what I should consider. And so I think there has been opportunity that's been able to be presented to me because I've impacted others who really believe in me or who've really appreciated my work or really, want to see me thrive or shine or lead. I think that's the bigger thing. It's not about thriving really and shining. It's like, man, if we can get her to head up our stuff, like people will come and people will stay and people will, and so it's an example of some of those opportunities come just because you're more focused on the work and not the opportunity. And I think that's what has happened to me.
That's brilliant. I love that so much. And I love too that so much of your story is being recruited. You weren't looking for the opportunity with the bank. You weren't looking for the opportunity with Penske. Like you were just moving along knowing that there was another level somewhere and just being open to the opportunities that God put in front of you and just taking it one step at a time and not having any idea what the end goal was going to end up being.
Even think about when they reached out to me, I thought I was being catfished. I was like, there is no world where these people are reaching out to me to ask me to come. Would I be open to a conversation with them? about overseeing all of their operations and strategy and reporting to the CEO. Like this major sports organization, like they've got the wrong girl. Like I'm being catfished for sure. So
That
there
is
was definitely an element of like, even with all that I was doing, who at this level would recruit me and seek me out. It's mind blowing. And there are plenty of days where I'm just like, I can't believe I'm here and doing it. And yeah,
Was there a moment where you had to, like, really decide and choose, "I deserve to be at this table," rather than being like, "Oh, I don't know."
definitely. You know, when I thought about, and going through the process, which wasn't a very lengthy one, and it didn't help that I had a great relationship with my boss at the time, and still have a great relationship with her. She was who recruited me to come to the bank. And essentially, it was doing her job, but at a different organization and in a different industry. And so there was, the question of like, I mean, that's a big step. It's a big step to take. But I just, it was a moment of where I just had to be honest with myself, which wasn't very easy to say. This is how I started to look at it. These people who are running this multi-million-dollar organization, this huge entity in this state, would not be talking to me if I wasn't worth it. I mean, after the first conversation, right? Like, you can have the first conversation, they could easily assess, like, nope, she's not what we're looking for. But I had not one conversation. After my first conversation, that person was like, oh my gosh, Allison's going to love you. And then I have this other conversation, and then they're like, oh my God, Mark is like, so then you have an interview with the CEO, and then the CEO calls you like the next day or so to make an offer to you. I really had to tell myself, he's a CEO. He's not like Joe Schmo. So, like, he knows enough. And if he thinks I can do it, and if he's interested in me doing it, and he's asking me to come and do it, then girl, go do it. Like, stop questioning yourself, stop doubt. And so, maybe it's something to be said in there that I couldn't give my own validation. It really did. The way I thought about it was these super smart people who are running really serious, again, $1 million businesses are saying they have the confidence in you. So then you should have the confidence in yourself. And so, maybe there's a thing where I should have had that confidence anyway, but that's what it took. That's how I thought about it. I was like, they can't all be wrong. So let's go.
Oh my gosh, it's so funny. Yeah, they can't all be wrong, right?
They
They
can't
can't.
all be wrong. I mean,
Yeah.
they interviewed, and then what I learned about this process was that they had interviewed, I mean, I don't know, countless people for months. It was a closed position. They didn't post it, so it wasn't like people just applying and they were interviewing. They were literally being strategic in who they tapped for a conversation for this opportunity. And so they had talked to plenty of people that they passed on. And so the fact that the CEO was calling me and offering me the job, I would be doing myself a huge disservice if I didn't give myself that opportunity.
I love that. And I think there is something to be said for eventually our goal is to heal enough from our past wiring. We talk all the time on this show about how early childhood wiring is what determines how we approach things and how we approach decisions in adulthood. And so if it's like, oh, yeah, I could totally do this, in order to get to that place, we have to kind of rewire and use other people's validation as a mirror for a while, and then we can start to believe, because as little girls, we get the messaging. I mean, if you were the good girl growing up, if you were the one that was like the go-getter, like, I'm going to fix everything, I'm going to get the straight A's, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do all the activities and be excellent at everything. There's this pressure as an adult that then we have to make decisions based on, I know I'm going to be good at this. I know I'm the right person for the job. But there's so much unknown, like, you won't know until you've done it that you can for sure do it, right? So how do we navigate in this sort of liminal space between what I know and what I think I could do but not sure, and how we make those choices, like your gut instinct that you have relied on all this time, and the way that you have noticed that you tend to play small, and sometimes that's okay to not care who gets the credit, and sometimes, oh, you need people to understand that this is coming from you in order to not do yourself a disservice, and in order to put yourself in that right position for the next thing that's coming. So I just think that's wonderful. I mean, I think it's not a downfall that you used their validation as a proper mirror. And the fact that you listened to your own counsel in that, I think is the real win here.
Doing that a lot these days. Like sometimes you do. You just have to count because I coach and counsel so many people. And so I've had to tell myself consistently, like, you need to listen sometimes to your own guidance. Or why can't you guide yourself the way that you're, kind of pouring into other people? And you know what else I'd share? And I hate to make this a gender thing, but I'm just gonna say it because it's how I think about it. A lot of times as women, we say this in recruiting all the time. The women will look at the job description and be like, to look at all the bullets, and will say, "Well, I can't do that one and that one and that one. I could do the first 8, but I can't do the last 3, and so I'm not gonna apply for the job." Men don't even read the job description. They just apply. They like, "I can do it. Somebody gonna give me the job, I'll take it. I'll figure it out." And so, even with this decision, I mean, when I think about what I did at the bank, I mean, I did a lot of great work, and my scope was pretty broad, but I didn't specifically oversee benefits. I didn't specifically oversee compensation. I didn't specifically oversee payroll. I worked very closely with those functions, but they reported to our head of HR, as did I. And so there was an element of like, okay, now it's all rolling up under me. And, I haven't been responsible at large for those things before. But guess what? I've learned in leadership and leadership coaching, that we hire expertise for the things that we don't have expertise in. I don't need to be an expert in it. What I am great at is leading and leadership and being a great support system to people who have, responsibilities. And so I know talent when I see it. I know how to hire it. I know how to lead it. I know how to support it. And so I don't need to be an expert at all the things. I just need to know how to get things done. And then I need to be really good at the things that I am more specifically responsible for, which I am.
That's incredible. Okay, so I'm taking away some life lessons here. So one of the things that I think is hard for us as women specifically and as perfectionists and high achievers is to let good enough be good enough. That's why we identify those 2 bullet points out of 20. Oh, I can't do that and I can't do that. I'm not going to apply because we're like, we got to do it perfect. And if we don't do it perfect, we're going to get judged. We're going to get abandoned. And then your survival system literally thinks you're going to get kicked out of the herd and picked off by a predator because you misrepresented yourself or you were too big for your britches or I mean, the list goes on, right? So I love this lesson of, you know what? You just really need to know what your strong point is. And you need to get people around you that are strong in the places that you're not. And you don't need to be perfect at everything. Well, there are people that are out there feeling so attacked right now, including me. What? No, I need to be doing it all perfectly. This was something when I started my coaching business. This is something I start like 10 years ago when I was trying to figure out how do you build a business and how does it go online and like how do I build a website and how do I create and there's all this jargon, funnels and lead magnets and all this stuff. And I was like, "Oh my gosh, I don't know how to do all this stuff. I shouldn't be a coach." And it's like, "No, you just need to know what's good enough for now." And so I built my own stuff at the beginning and it was real clunky and it wasn't really zoomy or anything. And it got me by until I could hire someone to take care of it for me. But that good enough, like letting good enough be good enough, is not something that we are wired to do as little good girls. So creating a space that's safe in your life and really grounding into the safety of it is okay for me not to be perfect at everything. And when I really need support, I need to find that support outside myself. I don't need to stretch and bend myself so that I can, you
Yes.
know,
Yes.
totally be great at everything.
And it's so funny. I mean, because I'm not cured, right? Like I still have that in me, and it's so funny. So I report to our CEO. He sees it in me so much and I know it because there are things we'll work together on, or things he'll ask me to do, and he'll say, "Kristen, I don't want you to spend more than 2 minutes on that. Like, don't spend more than 2 minutes. If it takes you more than 2 minutes, like, don't worry about it. It's not that deep." Like, so he already knows. Like, I want to execute from A to Z and back to A. And he's like, no, like 2 minutes. That's how that's all I want you to take. Or there'll be other things where I'm like, well, we need to do this or we should be addressing this. He's like, let's not spend 5 minutes on that. And so and sometimes it's really frustrating because sometimes it's things that we should spend 5 minutes on. But I take the nuggets and the lessons of like everything doesn't have to be perfect. And by the way, I report to a CEO, and he doesn't always expect everything to be I mean, there's plenty of spaces where, we don't wanna make mistakes, but the reality of, trying to be perfect at absolutely every single thing all the time is just not even it's not a thing.
And I so agree, but I think what's so fascinating is that you're coming from not only a financial industry background where every detail is really important. Yeah, make mistakes there. No mistakes. And then now you're in HR, which has compliance and which has, like, lots of liability, and you have, like, so many people that are depending on you to get a lot of things right, and if you only focused on that, the whole other piece of your job about bringing the heart, bringing the safety, bringing the love, bringing the culture to the company, and you've increased the company's diversity since you've been the chief talent officer, like, by a I mean, are you allowed to share that statistic on my podcast?
Well, I guess what I'll say, we've consistently hired in about 40% diverse staff year over year since I've been here. So
That's
we've
amazing.
tracked with, about 40% of the new people that we hire have been diverse, whether that's gender, racial, ethnicity, into our full-time, part-time staff. And then I'll say, we have a huge college program and seasonal workforce of upward, 2,000 people that we hire each year seasonally to put on the 500 and help with IndyCar. And we've significantly increase the diversity in those spaces too. So yes, it's been a great work, and it's not just me; it's our chief diversity officer and senior corporate counsel Jimmy McMillan, who's incredible, and every member of my team has been a part of it, and other teams that are in the business that we partner with. So yes, that's been a huge focus for us too.
I see you giving credit to your teams over there and not taking all the credit for yourself.
They work hard. I could never take all the credit. They are
Yes.
boots on the ground and they are relentless and work tirelessly. And so, absolutely, they deserve all the.
It's beautiful, and the culture that you all are creating together makes it so much more possible that you have good people around you because you're attracting the right people, you're keeping the right people, you're able to have everyone feel like they can be themselves. They're happy there, they wanna excel, and the fact that you yourself are learning like, "Okay, this activity is worth a 2-minute focus." I don't you're like, "But in 12 minutes, I could perfect it."
More minutes to be that much better.
And he's like, "No, Kristen, no." And that's enabling you to then be more gracious on yourself and more gracious on your teams. And I think as high achievers, we have this like sort of negative chatter that's like you're never you could always be better. You could always work harder. You could always do this. You're not giving everything. And that's so toxic for a work environment in general. Like it's toxic for my business, just me running my business. It's toxic as an employee. It's toxic as as a boss, as a CEO, as a, chief talent officer. We have to provide space where not only is good enough, but it's not the perfection, the details, the box checking. Yes, that's important, especially when you're working with compliance and banking and whatever else. But what's more important is everyone feeling safe? Is everyone feeling good, including like your nervous system? And are you creating a space where you can be at your best? And this is one of the things that I love to talk about because when we are so focused on perfection and productivity, we cannot actually be giving our best effort because the nervous system feels unsafe in those results based settings. So creating a space where the actual work is rewarding rather than the results being the only focus, I think is another gift that you are bringing to the places where you're shining right now. And I just think it's such a beautiful journey that you've been on to get you to this space. And I'm delighted that you have so many wonderful people around you and a CEO that like is helping you and just be easier on yourself and creating spaces where you can be creative and actually bring the heart of everything that you not just your experience, but like your desire for everyone to feel safe, comfortable, good, and to thrive.
Yeah, for sure. Appreciation is a big part of that too, is sometimes there's just hard things we have to do and there's just long hours we have to work. The month of May here, we work every single day. There's no days off. And that extends before May for a lot of teams and after May for so many of our teams. And so there are elements of that where it is what it is, right? There's only so much we can infuse some good vibes into, and people are just tired and they're working hard. And so appreciation is the other area where I focus on is we can say thank you and we can show appreciation and we can show that we know, right? Like we are aware of how hard you're working and how long the days are, and we want to thank you and we want to do what we can to make sure that you feel that we know we couldn't get all this stuff done without you. And so sometimes you can't make it fun because it's just hard, but you can know that people see you and you can know that people are grateful.
That's incredible. Thank you so much. I'm realizing we're like about out of time, but I feel like we could keep talking for hours. I want to be respectful of your time because I know we're in the middle of your workday right now. So, what is your piece of advice for someone listening who's really she's relating hard to what you're saying? Maybe she's in corporate or maybe she's trying to figure out, she knows that she's not doing everything she's capable of, but there are these voices saying like how dare you think about that job description or how dare you think about starting the business or, who do you think you are? What would your first advice be to her? Like what would be a baby step that she can take right now?
Well, a first baby step is to ignore the voices. And that's easier said than done, but the voices are lying. One thing I said about, or that I read a quote once, I'm not taking credit for it, but it was about imposter syndrome. And it said, ain't no money in imposter syndrome. And I would argue the same for all the negative self talk. Like there's no, and it's not just money, but there's no opportunity in that. There's no money in that. There's no fulfillment in that. There's no ability to make an impact in that. So if you think about the things that, because a lot of times when we have the negative self-talk, that's one side, but we have the other side of like, man, but I want to do this or I want to lean into this. Know that there's no progress on this side of the conversation. And so just maybe trying to remember that there's no progress in that. Giving into all the negativity, just it doesn't get you anywhere. I was coaching a young man yesterday and was saying to him, the thing that you have to ask yourself every day, if you've got goals that you want to lean into, is, what action am I taking today towards that thing? What action? Because if you are listening to all the reasons why you can't do it, then you're not taking action towards it, right? You're staying stuck, you're staying stagnant, you're not moving. So I like to say, there's no opportunity in that, and figure out like what drives you. Like for some people, it's the coins. I'm not mad at that. If the coins and the currency is what you're here for, because again, I'm from the south side of Chicago. I came from poverty. Like we didn't have, we were the family that waited in line in the church on Sunday to get the box for food. We had good times, we had bad times. And so, money, knowing that I don't, I want more and different for my family, I have to care about my income, as well. And so if that's a motivator for you, know that this side of your brain ain't paying. That's not paying. And at the end of the day, there's something for everybody out here. I really believe that. And so when you step into what's just innate to you, what's true to you, what feels good to you, what you feel like your skills are, what you feel like you can do good, thinking about how you can make an impact, like the doors will open, the opportunities will roll, you will roll with it. Sometimes that's a hard focus too, understanding like, how can you serve? If you what I'll also share this, I do believe like when we are caring about titles and formality and hierarchy and all these things, be a little careful of that. My experience is when you're doing the right thing, and the right thing could be what feels good to you, or the right thing can be for another person, and you're providing support and a service, all those other things that you want, whether it's money or title or accolades or whatever, they will come. They'll come, but you just got to keep doing the good stuff and telling yourself that all the negativity don't pay, and whatever pay means for you, like it's not productive. And so, what actions are you taking to reach the goals that you want?
I love that. Thank you so much. That's so great. My dad always used to say, or still says, there was a quote that he heard when he was like 17 years old, and it changed his life forever. And he still goes by this today. But the quote is, I don't even remember who said it, but there's no limit to the amount of good you can do if you don't care who gets the credit. And so, not that we should actively seek to be like, "Oh, no, I don't want the credit," not playing small, but just in a way that says, "Listen, what I'm here for is what makes me tick. What I'm here for is what lights me up, what brings joy to others, what lifts other people up, wherever you're making an impact." And then let the rest I love that you said the rest of the stuff will come. It's not like it's never gonna be there if you don't
It
focus
will
on it.
come. It'll come because people will notice. If you're in a business, in a company, or you're trying to start, like, what problem are you solving? Like, people have problems, businesses have problems, communities have problems. How are you stepping in and lending your time and talents to help solve a problem or help create a space that's needed? And when you lean into those sorts of ideologies, the other stuff comes. It'll come with it.
That's beautiful. Okay, I'm gonna try and wrap us up really quickly here. What is your go-to pump up song? We talk about kind of having a pattern reset in our nervous systems, and I know you and I kind of chatted about this before. What do you want to share with us that's your favorite song to give you a reset, or a couple songs?
So I guess one song I'll share, I don't know. There's another song I really want to share, but
You can share appropriate and inappropriate.
okay, the appropriate song I'll share is I think it's called Good as Hell by Lizzo.
Love it.
It's high vibes. If you know me well, you know I have a potty mouth, so I'm good for a song with a good swear word in it. But when I'm feeling it, so sometimes it just depends on what's popular at the moment. And Glorilla is another artist that at first she's an artist where when she first came out, I was like, no, thank you, kind of not my vibe. But she's got some songs that lights me up, and so one of them is TGIF. We'll just leave it there. People can Google it. They might already know it, but I'm here for Glorilla, TGIF. And also right now she's got another song out called Typa, and it's not really intended to be a hype up song, but I just love the energy of the song, and so those would be maybe my so Good
So,
as Hell, Lizzo. I think that's a lot of people might rock with that, but you should check out a little Glorilla. It's not bad if you need some good energy.
all right, I'm gonna check out Glorilla. I'm gonna say, "Good as Hell" brought me out of a serious like when I was in the middle of my trauma healing. That song carried me through some serious hard times. So I so much respect for that song and for Lizzo bringing us all out of our funk. And then my last question for you is, if you just have a few minutes, what is your go-to self-care? What really hits the spot for you?
I just have a few minutes. So recently I learned about like, and this, I feel like it's funny for me to be saying this because I haven't always been this person. Which is like, I learned about these breathing exercises, and probably 5 years ago, I'd be like, I ain't got time to be talking about no breathing exercises. Um, but literally, if I only had minutes, literally just stopping, closing my eyes, breathe really deep in through my nose, out through my mouth, do that a few times, you'd be shocked how kind of chills you out. Um, if I could offer something that's going to take much more than 5 minutes, but was kind of game changing for me, and I stumbled on it a few years ago. I took a day off of work, um, and I didn't realize that my husband also had, I can't remember all the details. I remember not being at work one day, and my kids were at school, and my husband was at work. And maybe I had something to do that day, but it was like all of a sudden I was like, wait, my kids are at school, my husband's at work, and I'm not at work. This is like relaxation on steroids. And it was like the best thing ever because normally when I take days off work, I'm not someone who takes a lot of this time off of work, but when I do, I'm usually traveling, I'm moving, I'm hustling, bustling, got a plane, flight, kids, or just me and my husband. And so that sparked me. And then I said, you know what? A couple of times a year, I'm gonna take a day off that aligns with the kids being at school and my husband being at work, and I'm not traveling, and I don't have nothing else to do, and I can do whatever I want with my day. I can do nothing, or I can do something. I can go to the spa and get my nails done. I can go to lunch by myself. I can have a mimosa. I love a good cocktail, or I can do absolutely nothing. And so I would encourage women, or whomever, as you can allow yourself to do it, like take a day off where you're not gonna have to spend that time doing a bunch of stuff for other people or even for yourself that isn't relaxing. Find a couple days in the year to do that. Game changer.
I love that so much. And I think as, when we are that sort of hero person, it's really challenging to give ourselves permission to quote, do nothing. I'm using these air quotes, right? Because it feels lazy or it feels like you're not achieving or, oh, well, you're home. You should be doing the laundry. You should be doing this. You should be doing that. And really, have to, it is life giving and life altering to give ourselves permission to say, this is time that is blocked out not to do household work, not to get caught up on things. This is time that is blocked out to do only things that make me happy, only things that hit the spot. And the first time I did that, I totally agree. It's like, "Oh my gosh, wait, nobody needs me, and I can just decide to go to coffee or whatever." Is anyone judging me on this?
Very very freeing, and you hit something too. If you stay at home, resist the urge to clean up. That's a hard one for me.
Me
It's a
too.
very if I'm at home, I'm always doing something because my husband makes fun. He's like, "You just like it to look like nobody lives here." I'm like, "No, I just don't want it to look like slobs live here, but it's okay." Um, so you have to resist the urge to clean or whatever your thing is if you're gonna stay home. You just gotta
Yes.
make it chill down.
Yes. So if that means you gotta move out for a day, move out for a day. Go somewhere else. Go somewhere else.
Get your she shed.
That's right. Yes, the she shed. I love that. Thank you so much, Kristen. So, if people want to follow along with what's going on for you, what's the best way for them to do that? Do you want them to follow you along on Instagram? And we'll have all these links in the show notes and everything.
That's a great question. So I do have a website that I'm working on. So it's KristinWeeden.com. People can go there and put their contact information in to kind of stay in the mix of when I go live and when I start to share more about what I'm doing and where I am and what support I can be to them. I think that would be the best way right now. So KristinWeeden.com.
You got it. We'll put that in the show notes, everybody. Kristen, this is just, I mean, literally just so life giving. I love talking with you. I love having you share your story. And I know that there are people listening today that this was so uplifting for them. And these women who are looking for their next step, I know that this helps. So thank you so much for giving us your time and your energy and your story and for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. It's really fun.
Absolutely. So, everyone, I hope that that was really helpful for you just to see someone who is absolutely crushing it and who has had some serious ups and downs. And if you are struggling at all, you know, you can always book your free 15 minutes with me at ElyssaSmith.com/focus. You can, if you identify as a woman and you want some support, you can come there. But really, I hope that you'll go and follow Kristen and see everything that she's doing. And until the next time I see you, take such good care of yourself.